I'm Alan Ing. I was Zorianna Kit, and today we review Joe Bell starring Mark Wahlberg. Yeah, let's see. Finally got to watch it, and I kind of have this. I'm not a big fan of the Hallmark type movies, but this one falls in that category. But I think to me, it sort of elevated that, and I think a lot of it had to do with Mark Wahlberg's performance here. What did you think of Joe Bell?
Well, I think my biggest question in general was or is, who is this movie for? When they greenlit this movie and decided to move forward, was it a movie to people who are homophobic in an effort to open their minds and expand their brains and give them some insight? Or is this for people who are basically, is this movie preaching to the converted, or is it reaching outside of that to actually make a difference?
Yeah, honestly, I think you brought up one of them, and that is to the homophobic, and I also think it's maybe an encouragement to parents of very conservative parents of kids who fall into the LGBT categories, because I grew up in the 80s. I became a Christian, got into the evangelical movement, and for a lot of the 80s and 90s, there was a great deal of homophobia. AIDS was still a big thing. There was no cure at that point, and the rhetoric was very much this war. And I think what I appreciate about this movie is it kind of addressed it in the sense of, you have these conservative families who do have gay children, and really tries to bring in a level of, it's that idea of parents who love their children regardless, and that struggle that parents had at the conservative parents at this time have dealing and accepting that, and realizing that the things that it's not necessarily a choice for them, and it's also the struggle they go through, that the kids go through, that the parents are kind of wanting to always remain on the sideline when it happens.
Well, I sort of felt like this movie was exactly like those parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like from the standpoint that the movie talks so much about bullying, but not really enough about homophobic bullying. Like when we see Joe Bell, played by Mark Wahlberg, going from school to school on his walk, on his march, talking to kids at schools about bullying, so much of the conversation is bullying, like in general, that's not necessarily specific to being gay. And this character, this family, this boy who tragically took his life, because it's based on a true story, was bullied because he was gay. So I felt like the film almost didn't have the courage, or really kind of danced really lightly on homophobic bullying. Yeah. And I don't know if that was a marketing ploy to just kind of reach a wider audience beyond being gay, because bullying transcends. I mean, bullying is bullying. You can be bullied for any number of reasons,
right,
including being gay. But I felt like it was a little bit of a cop-out, that the movie just didn't go right in there and say, this is homophobic bullying.
Right. I don't want to feel like that it hit both. I mean, I think you talked about the broader issue. Bullying is just wrong, period. And the bullies and the bullied tend to be, the stronger kids bullying the weaker kids, regardless of sexual orientation, gender, whatever, the whole laundry list there. Bullying is just wrong, and it's got to be addressed. And the effects of bullying are very similar in the sense of the bullied tend to want to kill themselves, are more likely to commit suicide. And then, yes, in this period of time, I think this takes place at the late 2000s, around 2010. And so that's still, a lot of that is still going on. And so I think it's trying to address both, just the fact that he does go into a gay bar with drag queens and has a conversation. I think it's, I kind of appreciate the fact that it doesn't go 100% homophobic bullying, but it kind of finds that 50-50 balance between bullying in general and the specific form of bullying.
Yeah, I don't know if like this movie, on the one hand, watching it, I'm like, yes, this movie it's really important. This is an important topic. This is based on a true story, so you can't dispute it. But I felt like there was something lacking. I felt like there was like it wasn't impactful enough, or it didn't. It just.
Well, it sounds like you're saying that the message wasn't strong enough.
Yeah, one could say that. I wanted to be, maybe the issue is that, we're not getting enough point of view of Jaden, the son. I think maybe, the story would have been more interesting if we knew more about Jaden and his struggles and his point of view. I mean, the film is about his father taking this walk to honor his son, and in a way, there's a bit of atonement on his own part, because he loved his son. He felt like, okay, in retrospect, he should have done more to protect him, to stand up, to do something.
And I think that was the point. In terms of coming from Jaden's standpoint, I think there is an abundance of films that do come from Jaden's standpoint, the son. And this one, I think, wants to take it from a parent's standpoint, and a parent who has to go through a journey of redemption, to atone for his actions and inactions in protecting his son. And then coming to grips with the fact that he never really had that real honest conversation with his son about, his sexual orientation and how the father felt about that. And I think that, to me, was the story of this movie, of this atonement. And it takes place from, I think it's easy maybe to underestimate Mark Wahlberg's performance here, but to me, it was just like, he got that jerk parent down really good, and I think that really helped his ultimate turnaround at the end. Well,
Mark Wahlberg is just a fantastic actor. I mean, when you just look at the trajectory of his career, where he started and where he ended up, it's amazing, and he really is someone you can count on to deliver an amazing performance, no matter if it's a heartfelt drama or an action franchise. But also, in knowing his career trajectory, you can't help but also know his personal trajectory, which is why when I was watching him in this role, it was a little bit sort of not weird, but I was like, either this is amazing casting or kind of awkward casting, because
he's just too good. Is that what you're saying?
No, but I mean, like, Mark Wahlberg's own past is that he was charged with assault against for hurting 2 Vietnamese boys or men. I can't remember the age, but his own past has involved issues of race and things like that. And today, married man, lots of kids, cultured, a Christian, goes to church. He's very, 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 right and wrong, knows, like, he's stellar in that regard. I mean, this is a guy who's learned from his mistakes, but so it was kind of weird watching him as this character, because in this way, I don't know if this movie is, an atonement for Mark Wahlberg or is this why this movie kind of sparked something in him to want to star in it? Because
I would also add the fact that Gary Sinise is in the movie, and he's I don't think he has a crime background, but his journey to this point is similar to Wahlberg's. And I will say, I think what was refreshing to me is the fact that, I talked about growing up in the evangelical movement. It's this issue that kind of got me kicked out, got me canceled from the evangelical movement. It was this realization that the way we are treating the LGBT community as Christians is just wrong and horrible. And I always describe it as a war because that's what it is. And I think I appreciate this movie because it takes that viewpoint, that feeling I've had for the last 20 years about the evangelicals, and brings it to screen and says, look, we are handling this issue the wrong way. I'll point to an upcoming documentary from Ryan Murphy on Netflix, Pray Away, because it does dive further into the whole, pray away, pray the gay away, the whole conversion therapy movement. And, I think this movie is coming on a time when the tide is shifting. And I think where evangelicals do have to come to grips with, to their relationship and what they've done to the LGBT community.
Well, I mean, I feel like, again, it comes back to who is going to go and see this movie, the converted or those who need to be converted. I just don't know if you're going to get a bunch of homophobic bullies who are going to go on a Friday night and say, let's go see Joe Bell.
Well, honestly, I think that's the attempt. And I could speak to the movie-going habits of Christians and homophobic Christians, and say that this is probably a movie that's going to fall into their lap somehow, and I don't think they're going to necessarily go out and see it, but I think there's, like I said, there is a shifting of the tide that's happening far underground at the moment, and I think this movie is going to play a part in hopefully shifting that and to get the conversation going, and to, in a way, or at least for my position, is hopefully going to become that point of redemption and conversion for the homophobic Christian community.
This movie is written by, I think I'm not sure how many writers are on here, but those who are involved in Brokeback Mountain. Mm-hmm. But that movie was, there was something about that movie that was, you were so emotionally invested in this love story, and you were rooting for them, and you felt pain for them. There was, the movie was just, there were so many emotions going on. And I felt like, for the same people who are now who were involved in that movie, now involved in this one, I'm like, but where is that? Where is that same emotion?
Yeah.
Where is that?
Yeah. I mean, to me, it was the Mark. This is about the Mark Wahlberg character and people who are like him, and I think that's the intended audience, and that's kind of the wringing of the neck and the shaking of the shoulders moment of snap out of it and get with the picture. I mean, Mark Wahlberg, not only in the events that led to Jaden's suicide, not only did Mark Wahlberg play that perfectly and it triggered a lot of memories for me, but even the post-conversion, so to speak, where he continues to struggle over his son and his position with his son, that was just as, and the anger he had for being on this walk, and the impatience he had with his family, and his relationship with his current family, to me, that's the message, and that's who they're trying to reach. Mm-hmm. And so it could be a big marketing mistake, but I think I found a great deal of appreciation for that story and for the story of Joe Bell himself.
To me, the most powerful and moving scene in the film, which again, I wish there was more of in this movie, was when Gary Sinise, who plays the cop, and Mark Wahlberg as Joe Bell sit down. I don't know if it's on the porch or they sit outside, and the sheriff talks about his son, who is also gay, and they had a really heartfelt conversation. These two macho men who's had to come to the realization and accept the fact that their son was gay, and it was so moving. Like they were vulnerable in this moment, and that's what I hoped for more in this film, to see more moments that really would touch someone deep in the heart and really open their eyes.
Yeah. So I'm getting the sense that you liked it, but it didn't go far enough for you to fully embrace the story and the movie. So, so I think you're probably in between a 6 and a 7. So let's go 6.5.
Yeah, I am between a 6 and a 7. I just, it feels wrong to rate it low because the subject matter is so important and it is so necessary for the unconverted to see. And so I don't want to dissuade people from seeing it. I just wish that it was more powerful so that it would attract all sorts of people to it based on the fact that it is moving and touching. And I didn't find that it to be very moving and touching. So 6.5 is where I'm going to hold on this one. I love all your insight on this film, and I love how you brought your personal experience into this and why this movie was a very positive one for you. And I want people to see this movie like you did and like it as much as you did. Unfortunately, I didn't. So I think that you probably gave it an 8.
Yeah, I gave it an 8. Look, I've been in the evangelical movement for a very long time, since the early 80s. And, I have found that, if you're going to change the minds of the evangelicals, you're going to do it through empathy and not through shame. And, we've seen enough movies about, these horrible Christians and homophobic Christians to, with the basic theme of shaming, to where if you really want to convince and start moving more and more people into the right direction, you've got to do it through empathy. And I think this movie is just loaded with empathy. And you don't get two better actors that evangelicals empathize with more than Mark Wahlberg and Gary Sinise. So I think my liking this movie better than most has to do with the fact that I've been kind of immersed in this issue for at least since the late 90s, so for a little over 20 years now, and it is a battle. The fight still continues, but I feel like we're moving in the right direction. So
isn't it amazing that the fight continues? Because it is. For you and me, this is they're all we treat everybody equally. Like there is live your life, love who you want to love. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And it is amazing that still to this day, we have to see these types of stories happen over and over and over again. I mean, it's tragic. It's tragic.
And I'll tell you, every time I have a conversation like this with someone who feels that homosexuality is wrong and a sin, and we know the picture. These conversations go 2 to 3 hours, and it gets pretty passionate, and it's again, it is a battle. No one ever feels good afterwards, but it's yeah. And like I said, I think empathy is the way to go. And I think Joe Bell is that empathetic movie, and you speak to audience. I think it is two audiences, the evangelicals of the world, the homophobic Christians of the world. I think that's the message. And I think that's the one who's going to. I
hope you're right. I really want you to be right.
So do I.
God willing,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, well, what do you think about Joe Bell? Would love to, if you go out and see it, please let us know. Like, subscribe, comment, let us know. And with that, let's get out of here.